Day by day, you reveal your love to me. Cradled in your arms, I am a precious lamb, a diamond in your eyes. Day by day, arms, I am a precious lamb, a diamond in your eyes. There I stood, a sinner in an angry world. Then I looked to heaven above, and I found you, and I will search no more. There I stood, a sinner in an angry world. Then I looked to heaven above, and I found you, and I will search no more. For cradled in your arms I am, a precious lamb, a diamond in your eyes. Jesus, name above all names, beautiful Savior, glorious Lord, Emmanuel, God is with us, blessed Redeemer, living Word. Jesus, name above all names, beautiful Savior, glorious Lord, Emmanuel, God is with us, blessed Redeemer, living Word.
Good morning. Today's scripture comes from Psalms 1. Blessed is the one that does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers. But whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates of his law day and night. That person is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields his fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers, not so the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over the way of the righteous, by the way of the wicked leads to destruction. Will you please bow your head and pray with me? Lord, just thank you for giving us a great break. Thank you for everything you have done for us. Thank you for bringing us here back safely. Just make this a great semester, and just be with us in our sports and our classes, and just bless us, each us, and every day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Good morning, York College. And welcome everyone back. And we do have some new students here this semester that were not here last semester. If you're new to York College today, this semester, please stand up so we can all get a good look at you. Welcome to York College. Exciting things going to be happening this semester. I think it's going to be a great semester. You've probably seen some press releases and whatnot. There'll be more news coming out in the coming weeks and this semester. But the library is is an old building. It's almost 50 years old, and we received a Title III grant this last October, and you're going to begin seeing changes over in the library, maybe later this semester, but certainly in the summer, and for those of you coming back in the fall to continue your studies here, you're going to start to see some changes in that facility, and we're very, very excited about that. I want to make sure that you're aware of that. But this morning, I've been asked just to kind of introduce the topic for the week here, and the idea of perspective. And perspective is kind of a cool thing. It's, it literally means what your perspective is. And so, a picture that a lot of times people look at and will point to and talk about perspective, this glass is either half empty or half full, right? And that's dealing with whether you're an optimist or a pessimist, as the case may be. And I think there's some value in that. There's some nice things that you can kind of learn from a person. If every time they see that, they think it's half empty. They kind of tend to be always looking at the downside of things, or maybe the more realistic side of things, right? For those of you in that boat. But I'm not here to talk to you today about pessimistic or optimistic, but about perspective. What is perspective? What is your perspective? Which aspect of your life is it that you focus on and becomes the lens through which you see your world? In 1995, a 5'6", 270-pound gentleman by the name of MacArthur Wheeler walked into a Pittsburgh savings and loan with a gun. He walked up to the counter. He demanded money. He was very friendly. He smiled at the camera. And he walked out with money he stole. Then he went and did it at a second one, same day. And that night, police arrested him. They showed his picture all over the news that night, and they got a tip, and they show up at his house. And he can't figure out how in the world they caught him. He is certain that he should have gotten away with it. And they got him, and he's just incredulous. Like, what? And they go, well, your picture was on the camera. He goes, but I was wearing the juice. And evidently he had seen National Treasure and knew that lemon juice makes you invisible. Unless you have heat, right? That was what he was thinking here. And to his credit, he had actually tried this. He had put lemon juice on his face, and he had an old Polaroid instant camera, and he held it up and took a picture of himself, and he had that. You couldn't see him on there. I don't know if he didn't know how to, maybe he wasn't a photographer either. But he certainly wasn't a good bank robber. It led a couple of psychologists to begin looking into this, and their names are Dunning-Kruger. Those are the names of those. And they basically began to chronicle what they call the Dunning-Kruger effect. And it's this idea that the less you know, the more confident you often are of what little you know and how much smarter you think you are. And the less the less confident you are often is indication of someone who is more knowledgeable. In other words, sometimes we overestimate our own abilities. We underestimate the abilities of others. That's a perspective. It's not a very good one, but it's a perspective. Sometimes we can fail to see our own incompetence or appreciate the competence of those around us. And as you can see at this chart up here on the screen behind me, this idea that those who are really, really smart, the expert in the field, they've got the appropriate amount of confidence, but they also recognize there's some things they still don't know. As Shakespeare once wrote, the fool thinks he is wise, but the wise man knows he is a fool. Over on the biology side of things, Charles Darwin once wrote, ignorance more frequently begets competence than does knowledge. So I want to encourage you as we begin this semester, think about your perspective, think about the perspective of others, that maybe there's something that we think we know and we think we've got it figured out, but maybe there's some aspect to it that we really don't understand, that maybe somebody does know better than we do, that maybe someone understands it a little better than we do. I find that oftentimes, and I'll give you, I wasn't planning on saying this, but today started off as one of those days. I got up and about my normal routine. I woke up a little earlier than I normally do, couldn't go back to sleep, so I got up, went to exercise, and finally the post-January 1st resolution crowd, it's thinning out now, so I can get on the machine I want, when I want. January 2nd, you go out there and there's 15 people out of Fitness Works I've never seen before in my life. And they're all out there. On January 3rd, about half of them were out there. It starts tapering off. But I wake up, I do my normal routine, I come back to the house, I shower, get my coffee, I go to put on my dress shoes and snap one of my dress strings, shoelace breaks. I'm like, really? And I start thinking about how awful it is that my shoelace broke. And I have to stop everything I'm doing to dig out. I did have a spare set, because this happened to me one other time, and I went days with a knotted shoelace in my dress shoes. And so I finally get it all figured out, thinking, isn't that just awful? And I got thinking about that, and I thought, that's exactly what we're talking about this week, is perspective. I mean, the fact is we have been blessed. So I've been blessed so much. I have spare dress shoelaces. I mean, think of that. It's unbelievable. But often we focus, I think, on the difficulty. We focus on the things that we can't control. I often grouse about the things that I have absolutely zero influence over. And Paul writes about this in 2 Corinthians. He talks about this idea that there are some things in life that are bigger and more important than us, and some of those things are really good, and some of those things are really difficult, and that we should focus on those things that are really good. And this is what he says in 2 Corinthians 4. He says, we've got this treasure from God. We're only like clay jars that hold the treasure. That's what we are. We're just clay pots. There's a Christian rock group, right? Jars of clay. And he says that this is to show the amazing power we have is from God, not from us. That's a perspective. It's a perspective we hope you get here and at least get an acquaintance with and an appreciation for during your time here at York College. This idea that it's not all within us, but outside of us. And then he talks about all these troubles they have. He says that they often don't know what to do, but they don't give up. They're persecuted, but they know that God does not leave them. He says we're hurt sometimes, but we're not destroyed. We constantly experience the death of Jesus in our bodies, but this is so that the life of Jesus can also be seen in our bodies. And he talks about how we're alive. It's a perspective. Paul's going to spend a chunk of his life in prison, and yet he focuses on the things that are good and more powerful than he is. He focuses on the power of God. And then he finishes up in this chapter, and this is what I want to leave you with today. He says, this is why we never give up. Our physical body becomes older and weaker. And at your age, you're thinking, I'm 50 foot tall and I'm bulletproof. I can do anything I want. But at some point, the body begins to wear down. There's some things that you're not going to be able to do that you can do now. And he says it's becoming older and weaker, but our spirit, that thing that's inside of us, he says that is going to be made new every day. It's part of that transformation that we talk about so often here at York College. He says we have small troubles for a while now, but these troubles are helping us gain an eternal glory. The eternal glory is much greater than our troubles. And then he says, so we think about what we cannot see, not what we see. What we see lasts only a short time. What we cannot see will last forever. Here's a perspective for us as we begin the semester. When that coursework gets really difficult, when things don't go as you might hope they would on the practice field or on the game, during the games, or on stage, or whatever it might be. Don't focus on those things, because those things are only going to last for a little while. In reality, the things that really last are the things we ought to be looking at. It's a good perspective, and I think what helps me is when I really think my life stinks, when I really think things are hard, when I really think life is unfair, when I really think everything's stacked against me, that it's going to be one of those days, because even my dress shoelace breaks. I need a reminder to have an eternal perspective. To have perspective that things are much greater, much longer, and much longer lasting than today, or this moment, or this semester even. So as we begin this spring semester, January of 2019, I want to encourage you and invite you to think about your perspective, think about ways in which you can look at life and look at a longer term view than right now. I know some of you are going to be graduating this May, and that's going to be an important moment in your life, and yet that's still just a blip, because there's other things that come after that. There's a bigger picture here. So blessings on each of you this semester, and may God bless your college.